All right, man. Let's see. Is this up and running? I'm checking on YouTube just to make sure that the stream is up before we get started. Okay, one second. Sweet, sweet, sweet. It's up. Mochi, how's it going, bro? Hey, Mochi. For this stream, I have some background music playing, and I'll be talking over it like this. How's the audio sound to you? Does it sound good? Like, can you hear me pretty clear, or is the music too loud? If the music's a little quiet, I'm actually good with that. Any problems with the audio, guys? Sounds good on your end? Good? Sweet. All right, guys. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Lilo. Today, we're going to be going in-depth detail scaling Zoro from Egghead Island against Sanji from Egghead Island. So, welcome. No music, are you sure? I think the music's just really quiet. Hold on. I'm going to be silent for a second. Let me know if you can hear anything just super quiet. Okay, let me know if you guys can hear any music or not. I'm not sure. But we're going to get into the scaling because the scaling is the most important part. So let me do the intro for you guys live real quick. Let's do that. Yeah, so stay steady in pursuit of your dreams and goals. You're born to win. You're made for greatness. And I definitely believe in you guys. Keep up the great work each and every day. All right, guys. So here's how we're going to do this stream today. Here's the chapters for the stream. First, we're going to talk about why it's a close fight, because there's a lot of people who think Zoro just breaks Sanji in half like a Kit Kat bar. We're going to talk about why this is close and why it's so emotionally charged. Then we're going to talk about like what power scaling actually is, why it works, the controversies behind it. Then we're going to talk about how strong is Zoro's advanced conqueror's haki, like how does it scale up against Luffy's, for example. Then we're going to compare Zoro and Sanji's stats based on feats, then based on the narrative. Then we're going to discuss any remaining unknowns and analyze the community poll and comments. And for you guys who are tuning in, this is your first live stream with us. This is a new series on the channel. Basically, the difference between this and my One Piece is Obvious power scaling is step 6 and 7 and are pretty much already complete when I do the One Piece is Obvious video. So it's kind of like... yeah, it's like one step beyond this, but this will still give you all that good juicy scaling. So let's get into it. Okay. So, and, oh, Mochi says the music's really quiet, still hearable. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. So, and I'm probably going to be going through, most of this first before I read comments. So, feel free to save questions for like later, in the video. There will be a section where I'm talking to you guys, like after we go through the scaling. So yeah, don't like be upset if I don't see your message right away. I just want to make sure that I accurately portray the scaling for you guys properly. Okay. So let's get into this. So why is this super close or emotionally charged fight, right? I boiled it down into 3 main points. It's picking a side, there's a favorite character problem, and then there's a history on YouTube of perpetuating this problem. So what do I mean by that? Well, most people... I wrote it right here. Most people, when they are debating Zoro versus Sanji, they don't do it in good faith. The reality is, most people start this argument from the following stance. They say, Zoro is stronger and I'm gonna prove it. Or they'll say, Sanji is stronger and I'm gonna prove it. So they've already made their minds up about how the fight's going to end before they've even started analyzing it. And so the result, what you get is a lot of people strongly make a case for one side winning and they ignore all the evidence to support the opposite view. This is what most people do. And for people who, even YouTubers are doing this, a lot of them. Okay. Now, then the step number 2 is that this is a favorite character problem. So, this happens in all shows that have beloved characters, but especially when it's the main characters. So Zoro and Sanji are two fan favorite main characters that also fight each other themselves in the show constantly. So you have, like, if you're a fan of One Piece and you grow up watching it, say you're someone like me, for example. I started One Piece, I was 5 years old, I'm 26 today, right? So I've been watching this for 21 years, and through all that time, there's been numerous times in my life where I looked up to either Zoro or Luffy, and some, not as much Sanji, but very rarely Sanji. I don't want to sound biased. It's just I was more inspired by Luffy and Zoro growing up. Right. And the reality is, like, you put emotion into those characters almost as if they are a role model in real life. You're inspired by them so many times. They pick you up through so many down moments, and people put a lot of emotion into these characters. So much so that when you debate against one of these characters, Zoro or Sanji, winning, people defend it like they're defending their freaking family members, because there's so many years of emotionally leaning into the character. So, for example, if I were to say Sanji stomps Zoro out, I'm not saying that, but if I just say that, it triggers people instantly and they want to, like, beat me up. Why? Because they've put so much emotional support into Zoro. If I say Zoro stomps Sanji out, there's people who want to beat me up for that too. You see, so that's the favorite character problem explained. And that's why this debate is, like, the most passionate one you can do in One Piece. And that's why I wanted to do this as one of my first live streams, because it just looked fun, like a good challenge. Now, let's talk about the YouTube history, because this is the main thing that feeds these other two things. So let's just talk about this, and I'm super hyped to talk about this part, because no one, I will promise you, out of all the One Piece YouTubers you've ever seen, no one has said what I'm about to say right here. So, One Piece power scaling is still in its baby stages. If you look at most big One Piece YouTubers right now, you look at most big One Piece YouTubers with 100,000 subscribers or more, most of them are reaction or chapter discussion based channels. Almost 100% of them are. Or theory based channels. A lot of these big One Piece channels have literally no interest in power scaling outside of fun discussion. And some of them claim that power scaling does not even exist. And most of the big One Piece YouTubers today that hold a lot of authority in their voice to the point where they can say something and people will believe it as fact, most of them, whenever they step into the power scaling realm, they do step 1 or step 2 that I mentioned. They pick a side, and it's their favorite character, and they just defend it. They just defend it with emotion and opinion. Okay? So, as someone like me, who I've grown up watching One Piece, and none of my friends liked One Piece, so I watched it by myself, and I would watch a lot of big One Piece YouTubers talk about it in reviews and discussions, and I would watch their, like, long debates on who would be stronger, and this was a common theme. And the reality is this. Right now, because of what I just said, we have a lot of Sanji versus Zoro videos on YouTube. But nearly all of them are done with opinion-based scaling for fun. None that I've ever seen in my entire life have ever been done in an impartial manner that create a solid, convincing, logical, impartial answer. I'm not claiming to have seen every Zoro versus Sanji video in creation, but I am saying that out of all of the ones I've seen, I've never once seen one done in good faith. I've never once seen one done in a way that could convince a logical, impartial party that knows neither of the characters. It's always just, this one stomps because I like him more, or this one stomps because I like him more. That's opinion-based scaling. What we're doing in this video, and what I do in all my power scaling videos, is feat and narrative-based scaling. There's a system to it that I follow that makes the videos convincing. And that's the key to making good power scaling, is you need to have a logical system. Most people don't know this, and most power scalers won't share this because you're kind of empowering your competition. But the reality is, I'm not going to share all my power scaling secrets, but I'll give you an idea of how they're formatted. Okay. Oh, I forgot I had this slide. This was me just more deeply explaining the struggle with power scaling. So yeah, this is actually kind of what I was just saying. So most people in general, they struggle when trying to power scale characters because they have no logical power scaling system. So what do most people do when they want to power scale something? If you get in a debate with somebody, right? This is what most people do when they're trying to power scale. This is the exact process. First thing they do, like, okay, if I were to tell you, okay, Zoro versus Sanji, who's stronger? If I just say that, this is what goes through most people's heads. Step one, they just try off the top of their head to remember the character's coolest, most impressive moment. Then, step two, they think, which character impressed me more? Usually, people say Zoro. Then, they say, okay, they claim that the more impressive character wins, and anyone who disagrees, they'll instantly call you stupid. This is the depths that most people, not just most fans, it's most of YouTube does this. Most of like social media, this is how they power scale. How do I know that? Well, this is what I also used to do. When I was 18, this was pretty much my go-to power scaling method. But when I started making power scaling videos and I tried to do it like this, people got mad at me. So I had to just start learning how to power scale in a logical manner. And then the reality is, well, I'll get into that in the next slide. I'll talk about the things I learned. But one more thing before I get into the next slide, and I explain to you like how power scaling works in general and why it's something you can actually lean on and get better understanding of the series from it. Before I go into that, I'm going to lay a ground rule for power scaling and debates on my channel. So if you're a fan of anime YouTubers in general, you know last year a lot of really dark, bad things happened within the power scaling community. And I'm just going to draw a gigantic, like mile deep line in the concrete right now and just say I personally, Lilo personally, refuses to let this awesome community that we've built turn into a cesspool. Okay? Because I see that happens in a lot of power scaling communities where people are just tearing each other down, pretty much doing this format over and over. We're going to change that. Over here, you don't do that. Listen, if you want to be a part of the debates in my community, or you want to get in on some of these arguments or whatever, that's fine. But here's the Lilo rule of debating on my channel, period. The moment that you insult a person's character, you've lost the debate. This will clean up all the debates huge. So something I see that happens a lot is people will be debating each other, and the moment someone says a point they don't like, people say, "Oh man, you're an idiot. You just clearly don't understand what I'm saying." So by Lilo rules, whoever says you're an idiot, you lose. You've given up the debate. You've just proven that their point was too good. You couldn't disprove it, so you insult their character directly. That's how we're going to operate over here. If you don't like it, just leave. I really don't care. Because the reality is, this channel is really cool, and we're going to keep it cool. I don't want people getting bullied and whooped in my community. Got it? Cool. Next step. So why does power scaling actually work? Okay? So here's the first thing. Here's the first thing you guys have to keep in mind. This is to counter the people who don't like power scaling. They don't even think it's real. There's a lot of people out there who think that, okay, if the author doesn't write it on paper himself, then I can say whoever I want is the strongest character. Like, that's why that's why, like, I remember growing up, people would say ridiculous things in Naruto even. They'd say, like, Kasame's the strongest ninja. And you would be trying to tell him, bro, no, they're not. You just like him the most. And people's response would be, well, nah. It hasn't been shown that it hasn't been shown that he's gonna lose to Naruto yet. So I mean, maybe he could be the strongest. No, that's not how. That isn't how power scaling works. Okay. Here's the first thing you need to understand: is that power scaling is real whether you understand it or not. All Battle Shonen authors do power scaling themselves. Otherwise, their story literally makes no logical sense. Like, if you have a Battle Shonen, by definition, you are saying, I want power scaling in my series. Mandatory. Now, let me explain. Because if you like shonen or you like any series that have fights in it, power scaling is a consistent part that goes throughout the whole series. And if the author breaks their own power scaling, you create plot holes. And the reality is this: so many people that say they don't think power scaling's real, what they're really telling you is they don't know what power scaling is, because it's in all of the shows they like and they're enjoying it. So let me give you an example. So Usopp cannot one-shot Kaido with a punch, even if Usopp gets angry. So here's the thing. The author has to recognize that Usopp has a set amount of power. Then he recognizes that getting angry increases Usopp's power. But Kaido's still so much stronger that it doesn't matter. So visualize it. Imagine there's Usopp, he's standing there shaking in his boots, terrified. And then he's like, you know what, Kaido, you really rustled my feathers this time, buddy. I'm going to mess you up, Buster. And he gets real angry, and he just like uppercuts Kaido in the chin. Even though Usopp is angry and stronger because of the anger, Kaido is so much stronger than Usopp that this uppercut's not gonna do anything to him. If it did do something to him, the fan base would freak out and they'd say, this is horrible writing. What you need to understand is that every step in that interaction that I just described requires power scaling. You have to know, the author had to know the power scaling. The author had to know, okay, Usopp's this strong. A rage boost would make him a little stronger, but Kaido just chilling is so strong it doesn't matter. That all requires power scaling, and it actually makes for the best surprising storytelling when the power scaling goes against your expectations. In-show examples would be Luffy versus Kaido round 1. That was one of the most impactful moments, was seeing Luffy after fighting and getting so much stronger in Whole Cake. He's like a first division commander level fighter, gets one shot by Kaido. Zoro versus Mihawk, he loses to Mihawk while Mihawk has like a pocket knife because the gap was so big. Ace fights Whitebeard 100 times and loses every single time. In the manga, it shows Ace trying to attack Whitebeard while Whitebeard's sleeping. Whitebeard one-shots him in his sleep. Straw Hats versus Kuma, Sabaody, Impel Down, Marineford, that whole segment was all power scaling to show that the Straw Hats, they had gotten very powerful by making it through the Grand Line. However, they were nothing compared to the New World. That was the whole point of that. It is power scaling and it is real. And when you understand that authors are doing it in their series and that they have to do it or the series sucks, then you realize, okay, if I make note of that, I can do power scaling myself to better understand the series. Because you start trying to think like how Oda's thinking. So this, like I said, I'm not going to give away all the secrets I do. Like, there's like 12 steps, not really 12, but there's like 12 different steps in between this little process here and me making a One Piece is Obvious video. However, this is a basic guideline that explains to you logically why power scaling actually makes sense. Okay? So no condescending rat activity. I'm sorry, no. I'm sorry, Manolo. I've seen your comments many times and replied to you, and you're always a cool person. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. But unfortunately, no. No rat activity in this stream. Okay? I hope you guys are following along. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat, and I'll get to them as I go through the slides, as we pause in between slides, right? Okay, so here's a basic concept to help you guys get a gist of how power scaling works. These are the 3 main feats you need to look at when you're power scaling a character. It's their attack potency, their durability or defense, and their reaction speed. Basically, it's like this. If you're taking 2 characters that are fighting and you take hacks out of it. What are hacks? Hacks are pretty much like cheat codes that a character has that can make them low diff characters the same level as them. A good example would be in Naruto. Characters with the Sharingan, they have a hack where if they just look at your eyes, they can instantly mind break you, even if you're a little stronger than them. So characters like Sasuke could beat people a little stronger than them if they can't protect themselves from genjutsu. That's a hack. Right? So if you take hacks out of it and you're just looking at a character's bare stats, you get a good understanding of who would logically win a fight based off of these three things. So if someone can hit harder, that's what attack potency is. It's like how much damage output an attack does. If they can hit harder and they can withstand more damage and they can react to faster attacks and do attacks faster, then that would mean they would low diff win that fight because they're faster, stronger, and more durable. If you're only superior in 2 out of these 3 stats, it's a closer fight. It would be more like a medium difficulty. And if you're only superior in 1 out of the 3 stats, and the other stats are relative, then it's high difficulty debatable. And another little trick is it's the easiest to make videos on low diff and mid diff fights. These are the easiest ones to make. Zoro versus Sanji isn't this. That's why this one's harder. So we're going to talk about it as we go forward. Got it? And someone left a comment. The one, yo, he said, I thought you weren't doing videos on Zoro. What happened, son? That's so funny, bro. Yeah, dude, I don't know what happened, man. I guess it's character development on my end. Who knows, bro? Anyways, so yeah, now let's get into the actual scaling. Okay, all we've done up till here is lay the groundworks for this video, explaining why scaling actually works, explaining why this is such a controversial thing to even talk about, and explaining like the history that's led up to this point in the One Piece power scaling community, essentially. Now let's talk about it. So how strong is Zoro's Advanced Conqueror's Haki? I made this its own point because the reality is, there's still a lot of people out there that think Zoro is still Luffy's rival. That stopped being a thing the moment Luffy learned Gear 2nd and Gear 3, and Zoro just got Ashura. So that's something that's got to stop, guys. They're not rivals anymore. Okay. Secondly, the moment Luffy learned ACOC, it was just night and day different than how it went for Zoro. So let's talk about that. Let's see, how strong is Zoro's Advanced Conqueror's Haki actually? So right here I say Zoro's Advanced Conqueror's Haki is far weaker than Luffy. Proof. Now, before I explain the proof, there is 4 pages just proving that Zoro's Advanced Conqueror's Haki is nothing compared to Luffy's. If that triggers you, I'm sorry, but it's nothing. And we're going to talk about it right here. So pre-ACOC, that's Advanced Conqueror's Haki. That's what that stands for. Zoro is overpowered and blown back by King's casual attacks. Here's a picture of it. Here's him just clashing with Zoro, blowing him back like it's nothing. Pause on that. I should have used different verbs. Here's him fighting Zoro, slamming him into this boulder like nothing. Then we see over here, Zoro clashes with him while he's doing archery, does Tiger Hunt, and slams him once again. So he's getting overpowered. Okay? And then with ACOC, he matches King's attacks and power. I put casual here, but I should have deleted casual. He's matching King's attacks and power. And I have a picture of that right here. And I put a chapter and page number because anytime you show Zoro being like a human and not a complete god, everyone just has amnesia, pretends it didn't happen, and they just call you an idiot. So I made sure to put the chapter and the page number. Go read it yourself. This is right after Zoro awakens Advanced Conqueror's Haki. He clashes with King. King is not getting blown back the way that Zoro is getting blown back here. So it's not such a massive power increase that Zoro goes from getting smacked back to overwhelming King. It's not some crazy thing like that. They clash still. They're still somewhat relative. And Zoro's actually getting a little nervous at the idea of King taking his swords. And then here's this panel that brings up some questions. So I did a community poll on this. So here's the thing. They clash, and then Zoro, it's either he's doing some kind of Conqueror's Haki, a mission, like just pushing King back, and because King doesn't have Advanced Conquerors, it's just Zoro, and they just push away like that, or it's some weird armament Haki thing, or Zoro just like pushed himself away a little bit. It's kind of hard to understand it. And then when you watch it in the anime, it just makes them look like they clash for a second, and then King flies off and continues fighting right after that. But moral of the story, especially if you're looking in the anime version of it, they're still clashing after Zoro awakens ACOC. So it goes from Zoro getting blown. I need a better verb. I need a thesaurus, bro. What should I say? It goes from Zoro. I'm sorry. It goes from Zoro getting the daylight smacked out of him. Then he awakens ACOC, and he's more or less relative to King. A little bit above King in attack power is what makes more sense, because he ends up beating King in the end of this fight. But it's not like an overwhelming, massive gap to the point where everything King's doing is just like fodder attacks to Zoro now. It's like they're still clashing. You see it right here. You see it right there. And yeah, and another thing is I was going to mention this a little bit later, but Zoro himself states that there's no point attacking King with his flame mode on, even after Zoro gets Advanced Conqueror's Haki. I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but that is something I was going to talk about later, so we'll get into that later. Okay, so that shows you like the increase he gets from ACOC. It's not like Luffy. Luffy went from in his Gear 4 fighting Kaido getting throttled to in his base form splitting the sky. Luffy's Advanced Conqueror's Haki was literally a bigger increase than Gear 4. Zoro's just makes him go from getting blown back. I'm just going to say that. Screw it. Goes from Zoro getting blown back by King to just matching him, and then slightly, maybe debatably being slightly stronger, but even that's debatable because of how the fight ends. Okay, step 2. Yamato scales above King and Queen due to not only clashing Thunder Bagua and trading blows and potentially damaging Kaido, but also surviving numerous battles with Kaido, having confirmed Advanced Conqueror's Haki, having numerous Haki blooms on top of that. It's just so much. It's impressive power. Like, to be able to clash with Kaido's Thunder Bagua, trade blows with him, potentially damage him, and survive numerous battles against Kaido over years and years and years, getting Haki blooms all the way through it. That, based on feats, puts Yamato above King. And also, something I didn't even write on this is narratively, you could put Yamato above King as well, based on how Kaido states he wants Yamato to be the Shogun, not King. But anyways, and I do have a picture of this thing of Yamato saying that she had numerous fights with him. Just don't want to spoil it. Oh yeah, it's right here. See, this is Yamato straight up saying, I tried to kill you more times than I can count, and more times than I can count you beat me down, but it made me stronger. Literally, that's Yamato saying she was just getting mad Haki blooms. Okay? I see Giga saying Zoro back shots. That's what I should have been saying this whole time, bro. Instead of blown back, these Zoro back shots are just going crazy, bro. Anyways, so we go to step 3. So yeah, Yamato is stronger than King, supported by King and Queen, consistently being... Oh yeah, this is a narrative argument for Yamato being above King. So narratively, Yamato's above King too, but it's supported by King and Queen consistently being portrayed as rivals. They're even part of the rival height Easter egg. Not a lot of people know about that, but if you Google it, there's a rival height Easter egg in One Piece where rivals are 1 centimeter different in height, and the stronger of the two is a centimeter taller for most of the series. Like Shanks versus Mihawk, Queen versus King, Zoro versus Sanji, etc. They're all 1 centimeter apart from each other. And Queen would never in his life fight Kaido, as he's terrified of Big Mom. Then you have Yamato just literally running the ones with Kaido on almost a daily basis. Okay, and then here's just more pictures of it, just in a clear, concise manner. King overpowering Zoro with no Advanced Conqueror's Haki, and then Advanced Conqueror's Haki Zoro matching King in power. Okay. Oh yeah, and this is like what really drives it home, this and this combined. So let me see here. So yeah, this is basically just explaining why, even though Yamato's insanely broken, she's nothing compared to Luffy. So Yamato, and what I want you guys to understand is Advanced Conqueror's Haki is completely different depending on who you are. It's kind of like Jujutsu Kaisen curse techniques. Like, whatever your Haki affinity is, you're going to get a way bigger amp from that than you would from other things. So Luffy's affinities Conquerors, while Zoro's affinity is armament. But the funny thing is, even in armament, Luffy beats Zoro. So it's like, we can leave that to the side, but let's just talk about Conquerors, right? So Yamato has had Advanced Conqueror's Haki potentially for years before Luffy. had countless hockey blooms, fought Kaido countless times, has the literal blood of a Yonko in her veins, and she's an ogre, getting an additional strength boost from that, possibly, and was full power man beast form in her legendary mythical zone that Kaido worked really hard to acquire. All that power on her side. She clashes with Kaido Thunderboggle and cannot split the sky. All that on her side, she still couldn't split the sky. Luffy, legit 30 minutes after learning what Advanced Conqueror's Haki was, splits the sky in base form. That's all you, like, bruh, that's all you gotta say. I'm like, bruh. Conqueror's Haki is biased. You guys need to understand that. Whatever your affinity is going to determine, like, your potential in that thing, or how fast you learn it at the very least. Luffy's Advanced Conqueror's Haki is so cracked that he surpassed a literal Yonko child with a legendary zone, full power, all the stuff, years more experience, surpassed him in minutes. Now let's go to the next panel. While Zoro is just like struggling to use it for a few minutes. So let's talk about the answer. So how strong is Zoro's Advanced Conqueror's Haki? Actually, Zoro End of Wano Advanced Conqueror's Haki made him relative to the attack power of King, with Yamato narratively scaling above King. And it's not confirmed if Zoro knows how to use Advanced Conqueror's Haki to boost his defense. Luffy had a basic understanding of using it to amp his defense and offense immediately, while Zoro initially did not even know he was using it. So here's some extra proof. Luffy spent this is the big thing. This is the nail in the coffin, my guy. This is the nail in the coffin. I've never seen another YouTuber talk about this, so bro, take some good old notes on this one. No one's ever said this, I don't think. Luffy spent 2 years learning how to use Conqueror's Haki with Rayleigh, and it's his affinity to begin with. Zoro, still to this very day, as of chapter 1004, has never intentionally just used level 1 basic Conqueror's Haki to knock people out. Have you noticed that? He had no training in it. He did, like, Luffy had 2 years of training the level 1 Conqueror's Haki, came back, was knocking out 50,000 fishmen, all this crazy stuff. Zoro never learned that. Zoro, he basically uses Conqueror's Haki on accident while trying to control Enma. While Luffy had a Yonko tier battle intentionally using Advanced Conqueror's Haki at a top level against freaking Kaido. This explains why this also explains why Zoro has stamina problems with King of Hell, because he's using level 2 Conqueror's Haki before even mastering level 1. Did you guys hear what I just said? Bruh, no one in my community tabs ever said that. I've never seen another YouTuber say that. I've never seen anyone say that. Well, you guys need to accept this. I'm sorry, I'm being a little rougher on my Zoro fans here, but just soak this in. Zoro doesn't know level 1. Like, barely at all. He uses it here, but it's not like what Luffy does, where he just turns on Conqueror's Haki, knocks out 50k people. Zoro uses Conqueror's Haki when he's trying to, like, have Enma not kill him. It's completely different, my guy. It's completely different. Are you guys understanding? Especially when you consider Luffy was trained by Rayleigh, and it was his affinity to begin with. He had 2 years. He's 2 years ahead of Zoro, bro, in terms of Conqueror's Haki. So for you guys to say, for anyone to say that Zoro's Conqueror's Haki is relative to Luffy's, you are pretty much saying his training with Rayleigh made no difference in terms of Conqueror's Haki. And that's silly, guys. So let's go to the next thing. Okay, so that was to demystify Zoro. The whole point of that was for me to show you guys that Advanced Conqueror's Haki doesn't make Zoro relative to Luffy. Just because you have Advanced Conqueror's Haki doesn't make you a freaking Yonko. It depends on what your affinity is, and it also depends on how long you've had the Conqueror's Haki. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, so I'm going to go into the next part here. I'm just scanning through the comments to see if anyone's saying anything wild or anything really interesting. Doesn't Zoro have way higher AP than King because he cut his strongest attack his sword, and his wing all in one attack. So that's an excellent point, Bias Potato. I like your name as well, Bias Potato. It's awesome. That's a beautiful point, and we're going to talk about that more as this goes on, but I'll mention it in the beginning here, because it's right here too. One thing I want to say, yeah, you can highball Zoro to having exponentially higher... let me put it... Let's just talk about this right now. Bias Potato brought up a great point. I'll just go deep dive on it. Okay, so this scene was Zoro defeating King. Let's just really analyze this. First thing we see, if we're highballing Zoro to the max, then this is extremely impressive. That would mean that King does this Dragon Damnation attack, stronger than all of the things that were blasting Zoro away before. And Zoro, with his final King of Hell technique, is so strong that not only does he overpower it, he like cuts through it like butter and destroys King, right? So if you highball it like that, because I mean, that's like the first reaction you get. And it's like, if you view it like that, it's like, okay, this final attack Zoro did is like exponentially stronger than all of Zoro's other attacks. That's one way of viewing it, and I actually kind of lean towards that. But here's something else that, if you're just being fair, you have to acknowledge this too. Right before this, Zoro learned how to cut fire. I'm just pausing so you guys can soak that in, because I've never seen anyone mention that when talking about this feat. Right before this, Zoro learns how to cut through fire, and we see characters like Kinemon chop through Boro Breath, something that should turn him into atoms. Just because he's using the same technique, he can cut through fire. So here's the thing. This final attack Zoro did, if he's not using Flame Rend, like the ability to cut through fire, then yes, it is as impressive as you said, Bias Potato. In that case, then yeah, Zoro would be significantly above King because he massively overpowered his strongest attack. But if Zoro is just using Flame Rend, then you need to think about it like this. It was pretty much the same as if King just stood there with his flames off and just let Zoro slash him with his strongest move. True or not? There's facts, huh? Because that's pretty much what he did. If he'd cut through that attack with Flame Rend, then King could have just stood there doing nothing. It would have made no difference. Zoro would cut right... like, it's like cutting through air. So there is a possibility that Zoro straight up just hit King with his strongest attack with no resistance, and King just took it to the chest. And that would explain why King, like, got decimated by it. So that's two sides to the coin, and you do need to consider both when you're making videos like this so that it's impartial, like not biased, right? So it's a debatable thing, but I put it here under Zoro's strength feats anyway because it's because I have this as a debatable feat for Sanji. So who is colder? Well, technically Zoro, because Sanji has fire, that makes you pretty warm. No, I know what you're saying. Yeah, like... I mean, even by that definition, Zoro is a little colder, but I'm being impartial here, so I want to give both sides equal coldness. How about that? Okay. No, I like both characters a lot, so that's why I like doing this video, because I'm not like one way or the other. I'm impartial. I'm just putting it all out there so we can make a logical decision, right? So let's look at Sanji's strength feats, and we're going to compare them to Zoro's. These are Sanji's best strength feats as of chapter 1104. This one right here is a spoiler. If you guys haven't seen 1104, I'll talk about that feat right now, so it'll give you a second to like cover your ears for like 20 seconds. Ready? All right, here we go. Sanji reflects an attack from a 5 Elder, someone who ranks above the admirals, and Sanji does this in base form. He can then go Diable Jambe on top of that and Infra Jambe on top of that. So that's massively impressive. The other thing is that this attack right here was designed, like, the 5 Elder was shooting this as a kill shot at Kuma's, like, spine. And Sanji reflects a kill shot from a 5 Elder in base. That's ridiculous. Then we come over to this. This right here is the most controversial feat Sanji has, and I'm going to talk about it. And I mentioned it to my community, and my community was getting a little upset. And that's when I knew, yeah, I really need to talk about it even more. So here's the thing. Let's scroll. No, I don't want to spoil it. But I'll just mention it, and you guys will see it as we go. Sanji's the first character to hurt a Flame Mode Lunarian with a physical attack. Zoro himself says that when their flames are on, there's no point in attacking them. dude, I want to just scroll to that panel. I have it on like a later page, but I don't want to spoil it all for you guys. I'm gonna go kind of fast. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, it's right here. Okay, yeah. Oh wait, no, it's the next one. Okay, you guys are getting spoiled. Just accept it. Okay, so yeah, and something else is I have an argument for Sanji winning and an argument for Zoro winning, and we're going to talk about both. But anyways, right here, this is chapter 1035, Zoro after he awakens Advanced Conqueror's Haki, and he's fighting King with Advanced Conqueror's Haki on. He straight up says, the flames are on. No point attacking now. Okay, and then in a later arc, when he's even stronger, he says, your attacks won't do any damage unless the flames are out. They're basically invincible when the fire's on. Then in this exact same chapter, we had Sanji just drop kick a flame on Lunarian. You can see the flames right here. He drop kicks him in the chest, and this man looks like he is in pain. And now, the reason why that's so impressive is because no one else could do it. Like, I mean, like Luffy and Lucci were comboing him, not doing damage. Zoro and Kaku were comboing him, not doing damage. But then all of a sudden, Sanji can. And one of the unknowns, the reason why that, like, gets people a little triggered is because Nami also, like, looks like she hurts them too. But, a possible explanation of that is Nami might have been doing internal organ damage. As you see here, the lightning bolt like goes through his body, so it might have done internal organ damage. Another way of explaining this away is that really durable characters like the Seraphim, when they take damage, a lot of times Oda has a habit of drawing really durable characters, their eyes go white when they get hit, and then they just get back up and they took no damage. So it's possible. That's a possibility. There's a lot of things to it. Another possibility is like, since Sanji uses fire, maybe it's like burning their insides, but the Lunarians are like impervious to fire too. So if he really is doing that, then that's an even more impressive Sanji feat. Okay. So these are all the things I wanted to say for Sanji's strength feats. And I'm just going to be really honest with you guys. This is going to be the most triggering point of the video. But if Sanji really did hurt a flame mode Lunarian with just Diable Jambe, something that Advanced Conqueror's Haki Zoro said he couldn't do, then you guys aren't going to like this, but I'm going to tell you, by that, Sanji does have higher attack potency feats than Zoro. I'm sorry. If this is actually true, if Sanji really does hurt a Flame Mode Lunarian, and he's the only one who did it, and Advanced Conqueror's Haki Zoro couldn't, then yeah, Sanji would have higher attack potency. That is something that Zoro fans hate. They can't disprove it, but they hate it. Now, the counter arguments to it were all the things I was saying. Maybe this Seraphim, he gets launched back from this attack. He gets up and he actually took no damage. Maybe that's a possibility. But it's the same way that we're including that there's a possibility that Zoro got so much stronger that he overpowered King and completely decimated him. If you're including that, then you have to include this. Okay, because they're both kind of a stretch, and we see this, like, his face looks like he's in pain, bro. So that it's a debatable thing. Most people just, like, this feat was so impressive, in fact, most people just pretend it didn't happen, because Luffy didn't hurt one with flame modes on either. But the simple explanation to that I can just tell you right now, look. This scene right here where Luffy Gear 4's punching him in the tummy and he's not feeling it, and Lucci's comboing attacking him. Luffy in base form is stronger than Gear 4 Luffy. Luffy base form Advanced Conqueror's Haki is stronger than Gear 4 Luffy without Advanced Conqueror's Haki. If so, that's how you could make that make sense, is that Luffy's fighting these guys without using Advanced Conqueror's Haki and without using Rio right now. That's why his attacks aren't hurting them. But if he used Advanced Conqueror's Haki, he's significantly stronger than all of these guys by a large margin, even in base. Okay? Now, let's talk about the speed. So the strength one, that's the most controversial one, because everyone just doing what I said here. Look, what I said at the start of the video. How most people power scale. They try to remember the coolest moments. They think what impressed them the most. Then they claim that one's more impressive, that character wins, and then anyone who disagrees is dumb. That's what most people do. When you say who's stronger, Zoro or Sanji, people are, Zoro. He's more impressive. He's done some cooler stuff. But the reality is, if you analyze the series real close, you realize that, okay, Sanji has a more impressive attack potency feat. Another thing that could throw a wrench in that a little bit is if you were to say that these Seraphim, the Seraphim would have... Okay, sorry, let me reword it. Something that might change things is if the Seraphim have lower durability than King in flame mode. But something worth mentioning is Luffy compares them to freaking Kaido. And what else? And we see Zoro on screen just like not hurting them anyway. So yeah, it can get a little messy, a little debatable. But overall, if Sanji's really hurting this flame mode Lunarian, and Zoro ACOC couldn't hurt a flame mode Lunarian, then yeah, the higher attack potency would go to Sanji. Okay, but it is debatable. You guys can keep debating that if you want, but for the sake of this video, that's where we're going to conclude. That is based on the feats. So Sanji is slightly more impressive, and all of these are not big differences, by the way, guys. They're just slight. Now let's talk about speed. Now, obviously, so the thing is, Sanji does have considerably better speed feats, but what I'm going to be doing here is proving to you that he doesn't just speed blitz Zoro and destroy him, because there are people who think that too, that Sanji would just speed blitz Zoro, beat him up like a ping pong ball, and he just dies. Well, here's the thing. Well, the reason why people say that is because Sanji right here in base form is going so fast, Queen cannot see him, and Queen was, if you look at, you guys have already been a little spoiled, so it doesn't matter. If you look here in this panel, Queen and King beat Marco down so badly that Marco could not regenerate anymore. Marco's devil fruit literally makes him do that. So what you need to understand, King and Queen beat Marco down so many times that his devil fruit stopped working. That's ridiculous. And it implies that Queen laid the paws on him many times. So Queen's able to react to Marco and land numerous blows on him. And then Sanji's able to move so fast that Queen can't even see him. So here's why it's impressive. Marco, Marineford, he reacts to Kizaru. And Sanji is in base form right here, moving so fast this guy can't react to him anymore. And then Sanji can go Diable Jambe, which makes him faster, and then Ifrit Jambe, which makes him even faster. That's proven the moment Sanji awakens Diable Jambe for the first time. So if you look here, when Sanji first awakens Diable Jambe, he's explaining how the power works. He says, the high temperature increases the speed of my kick. Meaning, the hotter the temperature of Sanji's Diable Jambe, or his just like fire ability, the hotter that becomes, the faster his kicks become. Then we go over to Sanji and Wano. When he after he gets his awakening and he uses Ifrit Jambe for the first time, he takes the same pose he did with Diable, and he states that he got exoskeleton, muscle, speed, all of which increase strength. And then he states that his legs are tougher and capable of supporting even hotter flames. Then goes Ifrit Jambe. So if you look over here, high temperature increases the speed. Then he says over here, he's capable of becoming even hotter flames. Then he says faster acceleration, heavier weight. So basically the way it works, Sanji is ridiculously fast, so fast that people who are relative to Marco and Kizaru can't even keep up with him in his base form. Then he goes Diable Jambe on top of that, becomes even faster. Then he goes Ifrit on top of that, becomes even faster. And one other thing I want to say that no one's mentioned, I haven't seen anyone mention it at least, is there's a possible that he might have a Hell Memory Ifrit Jambe version. So Ifrit Jambe might not be his full power, but that's never been shown, so it's just like a possibility. Okay, so those are why Sanji is just ridiculously fast. But the reason I'm saying Zoro doesn't just get speed blitzed and destroyed by this ridiculous speed is because he's shown reacting to the combined attack of Big Mom and Kaido, who are literally top tier, like the top of the pirate verse, essentially, and he's still able to react to them just fine. And he's even able to land attacks on Kaido while his bones are broken, but that's a little more of a stretch because Kaido kind of fights like Saitama and just lets people hit him in the beginning when he thinks that he's way stronger than him. But anyways, the reason I'm saying Zoro won't just get speed blitzed is because he's able to react to the Yonko on the rooftop. So him being able to react to Yonko tier combatants who are on a higher scale than Queen and Marco, it gives me confidence that Zoro can at least hold off Sanji's speed blitz attacks. So yeah, Sanji wins speed is obviously, but he's not going to just speed blitz and turn Zoro into sawdust. Like, Zoro is going to be able to react to the guy. And I also put this scene here of him reacting to King in his faster form, because something that was worth noting is, like, King was becoming faster with the flames off, and Zoro was still reacting to him just good and fine. He didn't really care that he had the flames off. He actually preferred it. So it was like King's enhanced First Division Commander speed was just, like, not that impressive to Zoro. And then finally, durability, hands down, goes to Zoro. The reason I say that, like, well, let me do it in a good way. Sanji has some crazy durability feats now. He takes a hit to the dome piece from a 5 Elder and gets back up and can keep fighting a little bit later. He is able to take this hit to the head from a Fishman Karate Lunarian Punch, and he's good. But Zoro just has a far more impressive durability feat against stronger opponents. Not debating Yonko versus 5 Elders right now, but, like, taking a combined attack from 2 Yonko at once to the Chinny Chin Chin, blocking it for even 1 second, that's such an impressive feat of endurance and durability, and then being able to get back up and keep fighting after that. That's just a far more impressive feat against a higher scaled opponent's more powerful attack. So basically, Zoro defended a more powerful attack than Sanji's ever displayed being able to take. That's why I give Zoro the superior durability. So based off of feats, as of chapter 1104, it goes strength. This is just off feats, and we're going to scale based on narrative too. You'll see how it changes. Based on just the feats of current chapters, Sanji wins in strength and speed, and then Zoro wins in durability. Now, something else I need to say is with feat-based scaling, you guys need to keep this in mind. Just because these are all the feats we've seen, it does not mean this is all the characters are capable of. The best example is, if you were to power scale Zoro chapter 1008, there was pretty much no one in their right mind who was saying that Zoro would be able to block a combined attack from Kaido and Big Mom at the same time. No one thought that. No one thought that. Then chapter 1009 came out, and Zoro actually does that. So it's like, it's a feat that's way beyond what we thought was capable for him, because it was way beyond anything he ever showcased before. So feat-based scaling has the possibility of being wrong in this area, because unless we've seen their true, all-out, full, every stat of strength, every stat of speed, every stat of durability, we don't know what the true limit is. So feat-based scaling, it's good, it gives you a ballpark estimate, but it does leave some gaps, and I like to use narrative-based scaling to fill in those gaps. So what is narrative-based scaling? Okay, I hope you guys are learning a lot from this video, learning some good stuff. So what is narrative-based scaling? It comes from statements and story patterns. The definition of narrative, like, this is straight from Google. I just Googled, like, definition of narrative. It's a spoken or written account of connected events of a story. Okay, so what does that mean? How do you even, if you wanted to do some power scaling based on narrative, how do you freaking do that? Well, I'll tell you the truth. The honest truth is that narrative-based scaling is about, like, 5 times harder than feat-based scaling, because feat-based scaling, you could read all of One Piece in, like, 3 months, write down the coolest power scaling moments, then you could go into a debate with somebody and have a good power scaling debate just on the feats. However, the narrative-based scaling, you need to have a deeper understanding of the series and understand the patterns as well. Usually people who can narrative-based scale well have been reading One Piece for many years, and have watched a lot of videos, have had a lot of discussions, and, like, their mind has just simply had far more repetitions with the story than yours has. That's why certain people can narrative scale really good, and others, like, are just kind of lost. It just comes down to pretty much how many times have you read One Piece, how many times have you discussed One Piece, and maybe even how many notes have you taken on One Piece? Because, like, for me, I know this is what I do when I read One Piece. I write notes. I have pages of notes on One Piece. I don't know if other One Piece YouTubers do that, but, like, for me, that's helped me develop good narrative-based scaling. So let's talk about the strength feats based on narrative. So based on narrative, Zoro beats the second strongest enemy, while Sanji beats the third strongest, and Sanji's fights finish before Zoro's fights every major arc. It happened in Alabasta, NES, and Wano. And Oda has a writing pattern where his battles become increasingly more intense, and then they finish with the finale being the most impressive fight. If you go back in NES Lobby, that's exactly what happened with Sanji fighting Jabra. Then it went up a level to Zoro fighting Kaku, and then it finished with Luffy fighting Lucci. The same thing happened in Wano with Queen, King, and Kaido. Same thing happened in Alabasta with Mr. 2, Mr. 1, Mr. 0. It just happens all throughout the series. Narratively, the same way that Luffy is defeating the first strongest, and it was also stated in NES Lobby, Luffy's beating the character that only he can beat. Based on that narrative, Zoro couldn't beat the first strongest opponent a lot of the times, and some of the times Sanji wouldn't be able to beat the second strongest. That's the narrative that goes on, right? But Zoro and Sanji are so close in power that usually Zoro has a harder time fighting the second strongest than Sanji does fighting the third. And it just goes to show that they're both really close. And then narratively, Oda constantly plays with the idea of them being close in power by them having bounties that are almost the exact same all the time. Especially when you consider that in One Piece it's stated once you get to a bounty of 300 million, it barely goes up after that. And from that point, Zoro and Sanji have always been like almost the exact same bounty. But overall, narratively, Zoro is stronger. And another thing that I didn't even write down here is that Zoro just has more titles, more reasons to be strong. So Zoro is, so they're both the wings of the Pirate King, right? Zoro's the the right wing, Sanji's the left wing. That's why they're both extremely powerful. However, Zoro also has on top of that the title of right-hand man to the Pirate King, and he has on top of that, he's the vice captain. So the reality is, based on that narrative, the importance of his roles require more power than Sanji's do. Sanji doesn't even need to be that strong to achieve his dream of finding the All Blue. Literally, you could just be a navigator and do that. So all of Sanji's power-ups, they're for the purpose of being the left wing, but all of Zoro's power-ups are for the purpose of becoming the world's strongest swordsman, of becoming the vice captain, of maintaining status as the vice captain, and also being the right-hand man. So narratively, he has many more reasons to be stronger, and narratively, he has a higher potential as well for strength, narratively. But if we're being honest, this is something I've never mentioned in a video. Sanji's by far the most talented Straw Hat. This man has had like literally no training. Like even when he was during the time skip, he was just running away and cooking. And then gets his DNA awakened that all of his siblings just had from the jump. And with just that, he's like a first division commander. It's like Sanji, his potential is insane, especially when you compare it to someone like his talent is insane is what I meant to say. Especially when you compare it to someone like Zoro, who trains every day and is still this close to Sanji, who doesn't train like at all. So that's something worth saying. Now let's look at the speed feats. We talked about this one earlier, the concept that King and Queen beat down Marco a ton to the point where his Devil Fruit stopped working. Queen was laying the paws on him, and Sanji speed blitzed Queen and base and then can go multiple forms above that. So yeah, Sanji has better speed narratively, and then the better durability narratively clearly goes to Zoro. And this has been implied since pre-time skip, where Zoro, this was at the end of Thriller Bark. They were both in similar amounts of pain, with Zoro arguably being in more damage when Kuma arrived, and they withstood the Ursurus shock explosion. They both withstood it, and they were both like super damaged. Sanji then goes down with like a smack to his ribs, while Zoro is able to withstand all of Luffy's pain afterwards and is still conscious and can still talk to Sanji. So it's like, yeah, Zoro was able to withstand far more pain and just keep it pushing. Narratively, that was pre-time skip. And then Zoro goes on to train over the time skip, become even more powerful than that. So narratively, pre-time skip, Zoro had more durability, and then post-time skip, we see him then again, like doing these crazy durability feats against Kaido and Big Mom. Narratively, it still goes. Sorry about that, guys. Narratively, it still goes to Zoro, okay, for durability. So, based off of narrative, this is what's interesting about this fight. So, based off of feats, and this is why. Listen, guys. If you're saying Zoro one-shot Sanji or low diffs him, or that Sanji low diffs Zoro, it's just the story doesn't support that, because based on feats, Sanji wins 2 out of 3. Based on narrative, Zoro wins 2 out of 3. By definition, this is extremely close, okay? So let's go on. Now, here are some remaining unknowns. We already kind of went over them as we were going through this video. Is like, we don't know the max durability of the Seraphim with their flame mode on. We don't know if Nami actually hurts him here, while Luffy and Zoro did not. We don't know the whole reasoning behind it. I gave my reasonings what I thought. Maybe Nami's doing internal organ damage because the attack goes like through his body, shown right here. We don't know. And yeah, maybe Sanji was doing internal organ damage. These are some unknown things that are just kind of open for discussion. And then, like I was saying, we don't know if they were hurt or not. Here's an example of characters with their eyes going white, but not taking damage. Would be Luffy against Kaido, and then he just gets up and attacks him. And then Nami does the same thing against the Seraphim, and then Zeus says, well, that didn't work, and he just gets back up and is about to attack her in a similar fashion. But this is controversial because we don't really know if it did damage. Maybe it did do some, but just not enough to slow him down for a long time. Unless Oda writes it in an SBS for sure, or unless he like clearly states in one of the upcoming chapters, hey, Nami was able to hurt him because she did internal organ damage, and Sanji hurt him because he got so passionate, he was this, that, you know. Unless Oda comes out and say that, then this is going to stay within the realm of mystery and speculation. And then here's a list of characters with white eyes that actually took damage. This one being the Minotaur, who's an awakened zone as well, who are stated to have really high durability. And this was a pattern I noticed. I don't like to do scaling based off of like pixels and stuff, like pixel scaling. I'm not a fan of it, but this was a pattern I noticed, is that these guys, when their eyes went white and they actually took damage, there was also blood as well, you see. And over here, these guys, their eyes go white and there's no blood. I'm not saying that that's a consistent thing throughout the whole series or anything, but this is what I noticed when I was like getting these pictures together. And yeah, and I gave the possible explanations. This was also the same attack. This lightning blast that might have hurt a Seraphim was the same attack that she used to finish off ulti as well. So I wanted to include that. And okay, so let's get into the arguments for both of them winning. So what I'm going to give you an argument for Sanji winning. Then I'm going to give you an argument for Zoro winning. Then we're going to finish this up with the most logical conclusion. Then I'm going to open it up for any questions, and I'm going to be hopping over to the community poll to look at one of the polls. So the argument for Sanji winning, we were kind of going over this before, but his speed is ridiculous. He becomes faster and stronger with each Diablo transformation. So he has 2 transformations. It's Diablo and then Ifrit. And he becomes faster the hotter the flames on his feet become. And Kizaru points out that acceleration is power. So Sanji has this ridiculous top tier speed, and even without it, he's already strong enough to potentially hurt a flame mode Lunarian. So if you stack those 2 things together, you have a guy who's so strong, he has attack potency feats greater than Advanced Conqueror's Haki Zoro did. And he's doing that with Diablo. Then he can add Ifrit Jambe on top of that, become a level faster and a level stronger, and that additional speed directly translates to power too. So it would just give him insane speed, insane power, and the argument for Sanji winning is that he would be so fast and so strong that he would eventually just whittle Zoro down to the point where Zoro just can't keep fighting anymore, and Sanji would win the fight extreme difficulty. That's the argument for Sanji winning, and it's also kind of backed up by Zoro here saying like, okay, I could not damage this flame mode on Lunarian, and then even right here, we can't damage them with their flames on, but then Sanji comes over and he's doing it with just, we can't tell what flame mode this is, but I was just assuming it's Diablo Jambe. Until it gets animated, we won't know for sure. Maybe this was Ifrit. Who knows? But either way, he's if you're including this feat and you're saying he did hurt a flame mode on Lunarian, that does put Zoro above. That does put Sanji above this Zoro, who straight up in ACOC said he couldn't do it, and then we have Sanji actually doing it. Now, this was me. Okay, yeah, this was me kind of like just putting that into words. Let me read through this and oops. Oh man, let me read through this and see if I missed anything. So I said Sanji already has on-screen better attack potency and speed feats. He reacted to and reflected a kill shot from a 5 Elder while Sanji was in base form. Ifrit Janbei's 2 forms faster. He becomes faster as his legs get hotter. Kizaru confirms that speed is power. The faster Sanji becomes, the more powerful he becomes. And if you add to that the possibility that Sanji might be the first character in One Piece to damage a flame mode Lunarian with a physical attack, then that would mean that Sanji scales above Zoro. He's doing more impressive strength and speed feats to more powerful characters, while Zoro has more endurance feats against more powerful characters. Now, here's the argument for Zoro winning. You have to lean more on narrative because Zoro right now, the reality is he's still getting used to Enma, and it's making it so that his showings are less impressive. I'll just be straight with you. And the argument for Zoro winning, you have to lean more on narrative, but the reality is there's so much narrative leaning Zoro's way that you can actually make a good argument. The best point being that in the end of Wano, Sanji himself states that he thinks Zoro could find a way to kill him. Sanji says, like, if he loses his mind by using these Germa transformations, he wants Zoro to kill him afterwards. That is massively impressive because there's a scene. Now, it depends on which translation you're reading, but when I first read it, I read a translation that said along the lines that Sanji believed with the raid suit on, he'd be so strong that he could low diff easily destroy Queen. But as I was reading, I've read other translations that more along the lines say, Sanji says, if I keep using this raid suit, I could beat a guy like this without a second thought. So they're two different meanings altogether, but basically there's a chance that Sanji said to Zoro, like Sanji himself was thinking, dude, even with this insane power up, I think Zoro could kill me. He could find a way to do it. There's a chance Sanji was saying that. Okay, so based on the narrative and everything I was saying earlier about Zoro having the just a higher power requirement for his dreams and goals. On top of that, him just having these roles that require more out of him, and then Sanji himself saying that he thinks Zoro could kill him. All these things lead to Zoro winning narratively, right? So what's the most logical conclusion? Okay, because what we just said here is that Sanji could win based on feats, Zoro could win based on narrative. What's the most logical conclusion then? So currently, as of chapter 1104, Sanji has better attack potency feats and better speed feats, but they're still relative to Zoro's best showings. And the narrative has been that these two are extremely close rivals. First, they became extremely close rivals for the first time during NES Lobby, where they get their power-ups, like Sanji gets Diablo Jambe, Zoro gets Ashura, and then Sanji kind of mid-diffs Jaburo while Zoro high-diffs Kaku, and those two opponents were almost the same power level. So they were super close then. Then after the time skip, Zoro gets trained with an exponentially stronger master and just comes back a lot stronger than Sanji, like a considerable amount, to the point where their fight, at that point, I would no longer consider their fight a high diff. I'd more be leaning towards like medium high diff with Zoro winning at that point. But then once Sanji unlocks his potential in Wano, the fight became extremely close again, just like it was at the end of NES Lobby. So narratively, it's an extremely difficult victory for Zoro, narratively. After the battle, Zoro collapses and cannot fight anymore. So think of it like Jinbei versus Ace. They would both collapse, but Sanji would collapse first based off of the narrative. This is, okay, and one more thing I want to say before I finish this. This is what extreme diff means to me. Both characters pass out, but one will pass out before the other. High difficulty is when a character's just super damaged, but they can get up and keep moving. Kind of like Luffy versus Katakuri, but extreme difficulty would be like Jinbei versus Ace, where they both go down, right? So narratively, I would say it's an extreme difficulty victory for Zoro. Like Sanji would collapse, Zoro collapses a moment later. And based off of feats, the current feats from all we've seen, and if you're including everything, you're giving Zoro his best showings and Sanji his best showings. And based on those feats, then yes, it would be an extreme difficulty victory for Sanji, with Zoro collapsing first and then Sanji collapsing right afterwards. But like I said, based on feats, that doesn't mean that that's everything a character's capable of. Zoro could have something else cooking up. And it's like, if you wanted to, So if you wanted to, nah, you would have to ignore stuff. I was gonna say if you wanted to take like a really unbiased, a really biased approach, you could like honestly lie and make Zoro stronger if you say that Zoro cut through flame mode king, but he doesn't, so you can't. So I'm sorry. Like, yeah. But but yeah, that's pretty much everything for this one. Just one more time to summarize it for you. Narratively, Zoro wins extreme difficulty battle. Sanji collapses first, then Zoro collapses right after. But based on the current feats, especially with Sanji potentially hurting a flame mode Lunarian, while Zoro immediately afterwards says he can't freaking do that. Based on feats, Sanji extreme difficulty would beat Zoro. Like Zoro would collapse, then like a second after Sanji collapses. So pretty much they're both just about exactly even to each other. That's what this video proves, is that like when you really look at it with a fine tooth, impartial comb, and you're not going in here trying to say one is stronger than the other, and you just look at it based on the feats and based on the narrative, you realize this fight is super freaking close. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about here. Now, one more thing I wanted to talk about was the community tab polls. Really quick before I go over there, this is the One Piece rival heights thing I was telling you about. Zoro's height's 181, Sanji's 180, King's 613, Queen's, the rival heights. Okay? And that implies that Queen and King are rivals. So for people who are saying that King just low diffs, Oda disagrees, my friend. Now, this, if I'm just being honest with you guys, this was what caused this stream, guys. This poll is what caused this stream, bruh. It's because like I put this poll out and I thought Sanji was going to win overwhelmingly. Because we see Zoro fight King with no advanced Conqueror's Haki, and he gets destroyed. Like, if you go back, read that fight again. Read chapter 1033 and look at Zoro get smacked silly by King while Zoro's not using advanced Conqueror's Haki. Just look at that. Then look at Sanji and look at all these insane things he's doing, reflecting attacks from 5 elders, possibly hurting flame mode on Lunarians. And then not only reflecting a 5 elder attack, but doing it in base form, and he has 2 forms above that. Potentially 3 if he has a Hell Memory version of Ifrit Jambe. Okay? And people were still saying Sanji with all this disgusting power and speed would be weaker than no advanced Conqueror Zoro. Basically, they're saying they still think Sanji's weaker than Queen. They still think Sanji's weaker than King. And that's another debatable topic all on its own. But yeah, this was blasphemous. And this was when I started realizing, like, okay, the Zoro, this scaling, what I told you guys here at the very start, you remember this? Hold on. How I said how most people scale things? Like where I said right here? What I said right here, this is how most people scale. They just try and remember the character's coolest moments. They think which character impressed them the most. They claim the more impressive character wins and then just calls everyone else stupid. Yeah, that's what was happening here. So that's what this is, period. Because Zoro is so cool, people put him over everyone. Like, in my community polls, dude, it got to a point where I literally wanted to just stop putting Zoro in community polls because people are out here thinking he's freaking Gold Roger, man. Like, it's nuts. But yeah, this was everything I wanted to talk about. Let me see if I had any other things I said. Analyze community poll comments. Okay, so yeah, this is your guys' chance for any questions. I'm going to be reading through the comments right here. This is your guys' chance for any questions that you have. If anything didn't make sense, anything you disagreed with, let me know. Oh, actually, before I do that, let me also just scroll through some of these. Let me scroll through some of these comments. So, I pinned this one. He said Sanji takes this mid diff. Anyone higher with 20% in a Zoro poll wins. Now, I don't actually think Sanji takes his mid diff. I do think this would be a high difficulty fight. Sanji would be really beaten up afterwards, but Sanji would still win. But I just said this is the best and most accurate comment. Yeah. And then let's see what else we have at the top comments. Could go either way. Extreme difficulty. Sanji's speed and durability would be a massive problem for Conqueror's Haki, advanced Conqueror's Haki Zoro, just like how Zoro's attack potency and endurance would be a massive problem for Sanji. And you see, that's pretty true, but I disagree with it being extreme difficulty. Like I said, I think it would be high difficulty, Sanji victory. And let's see. There's no way Sanji doesn't take this. I just loved that one. And something else I think with my polls is I try not to love comments too often because I'm afraid that it's going to sway the results of the poll. But this one, I just went ahead and loved the Sanji comments anyway because this was just blasphemous. I was just like, man, I'm probably going to stop putting Zoro in polls. Like, no, that was just my response. But let me look through. So I'm looking through the comments of the chat, and I'm just seeing if anything I missed here. Let's see. Okay, so Alan Young says, so would you consider Sanji's Germa genes a hack? No, because it doesn't give him an ability to just like instantly destroy people stronger than him. A hack would be something like Law's Room ability, where Law can like just teleport people or like chop people's limbs off. That's pretty hacks, right? But Oda did a good job of putting Haki in place so that he can't do it to just everybody. But the fact that he can do it to a lot of people is hacks. Or like the best example of hacks that I can think of off the top of my head is Sharingan in One Piece. And oh yeah, Sharingan in One Piece is real good. No, Sharingan in Naruto, I meant to say. Where like characters of relative equal strength, like for example, if Sasuke's fighting someone the same strengths as him, but they have no genjutsu defense, he'll just one shot win with Sharingan, and that's a hack because it's way beyond what he can do with his normal abilities. Okay, let's see. I'm just reading the comments right now, seeing if there's any more questions I missed. Okay, so Manolo said, "Oh, whoa, tact." Tact says Sanji giving Zoro Ifrit back shots, bro. And then Manolo says, "Still mad that Oda made Shanks taller. I don't like what that means for my agenda." Oh, because he's talking about like in the rival scaling, the taller of the two rivals is usually stronger, and Shanks is taller than Mihawk. And then Manolo says, it's crazy that even the categories of Haki that Luffy is less proficient in, he's still more proficient than others' most proficient categories. 1000% fact. That's humongous, actually. Like, if you look at Luffy's armament Haki, so here's the thing. Rio, level 2 Rio, this is still kind of a, what's the word? It's still, like, debatable whether what I'm about to say is 100% true. But I'm going to say it anyway. So Rio it's kind of implied to be level 2 armament. Because when they're describing what armament is, first they say that, okay, in Wano, we just call all of Haki Rio. So, like, that's what they consider Haki. That's the word they use for Haki is Rio in Wano. Then they show Luffy's normal attacks with Haki. They do a little, like, diagram, and they say, okay, a normal attack is doing outside damage. But the advanced form of Rio will do internal damage and like explode Haki inside their body, right? So that might be advanced armament. Like what Luffy's doing, the Rio Luffy's doing might just be advanced armament. And it's kind of implied by Luffy saying that like when he saw Rayleigh do it, he was like, dude, I trained for 2 years and I still didn't even get close to that. And he's like, that level of Haki that Rayleigh did was super advanced. So I like, there's little things thrown in when they're explaining it that make it appear to be level 2 armament. And Zoro doesn't know that. Okay, so I mean, like, even if it's not like that's a big thing, you know, that Luffy with just his armament, it's not even his proficiency, is stronger than Zoro in his proficiency category. That's a big thing. But it is debatable. Rio might just be its own separate like branch off category, but I do lean more towards the idea that Rio, the stuff Luffy's doing, is level 2 armament. That's I don't know if I consider it headcanon or not, but now I'm reading the comments, seeing if there's anything else I missed. Rim Aura says, just hopped in and completely agree with what I'm seeing. Thank you, Rim Aura. Yeah, this stream had so much power scaling in it, so yeah, if you get a chance, do make sure to check out the earlier stuff too. There's a lot of scaling in it. And then let's see who else here. So IL Gug says, Slightly unrelated, but do you think that they will stay similar in power in later One Piece, like when Zoro fights Beats Mihawk? Personally, no. I think, well, here's what I think will happen. I think end of series, like let's say all the Straw Hats are still alive, end of series, I really hope. I don't want any of them to die. That would be so sad. So let's say end of series, you have a Pirate King Luffy and you have a world's strongest Zoro. What would Sanji be? He's just going to be the left wing of the Pirate King. So he'll be relative to Zoro, but I mean, both of them just maximizing their dreams potential. Zoro would be a good amount stronger. So it's not going to be as big of a gap as it was back in Fishman Island. Back in Fishman Island, it was a pretty considerable gap. But I think end of series Zoro will be stronger than Sanji, but like it'll still be a very high diff fight, maybe even extreme diff still. Like this gap that they have right now is so small, and Oda, here's my thoughts on it. Oda had established the series where they were close in power starting Enies Lobby. Like they were real close starting Enies. Okay, then time skip happens and he gives Zoro a stronger master and they come back and there's a pretty considerable gap between Zoro and Sanji. If Oda wanted to, he could have just left it like that. But he went out of his way to power up Sanji a lot. So, and then he doubles down on it by having him reflect attacks from 5 elders and stuff, and creating a whole new title, Wing of the Pirate King, just for Sanji. Because before, it was just right-hand man of the Pirate King. No one mentioned anything about wings, as far as I remember. I could be wrong. Maybe there's like some mention in it somewhere in like chapter 200 or something. But from what I remember, no one ever mentioned anything about wings until after Sanji like started evolving and just becoming this Chad. So it seems like Oda wants them to be close in power, and he doesn't want that gap to happen again. So I think that they're always going to be close till the end of the series, but in the end, Zoro will be stronger than Sanji, just because his dreams require him to be. Now, let me see. What else is here? Okay, so Yuta said, I love the name Yuta Ogotsu. He says, we've been discussing AP and defense a lot, but who has better stamina? Sanji. 1000%. Zoro can't even fight with Advanced Conqueror's Haki for that long without dying. Okay. Giga says, do you have any controversial takes about where Jinbei ranks? Controversial takes about where Jinbei ranks. Well, okay, yeah, the most controversial take you could say for Jinbei would be that he doesn't deserve his bounty. And that he has never defeated anyone 3rd Division Commander level or higher. And like going into Wano, I wasn't even sure if he could beat Doflamingo. But now that he has $1 billion bounty and he like low diffed Who's Who, and he was given a bounty higher than Sanji, and Sanji did all these incredible things, people are automatically upscaling him to be relative to Sanji. But the reality is, bruh, I don't think he is. Because, like, I put Jinbei at 2nd Division Commander level pretty solid. Like, but that's kind of hard, dude, to say. It's like I said, I'm going to have to do some research before I, like, say for certain where I would put Jinbei. But, like, for example, I think if you took Sabo the moment he got his fire fruit, he might beat Jinbei. Like, probably would whoop him. That's kind of where, like, it would be another high diff, like, Ace versus Jinbei scenario, but I think Sabo would edge out the victory there. This is just off the top of my head. I'll have to research and, like, put stuff together before I would say for sure where Jinbei actually is. But off the top of my head, it's, like, weak 2nd Division Commander level. That's what comes to my mind. I could be wrong on that, but that's like what comes to my mind like from the beginning, and it is kind of controversial. But overall, Jinbei's a complete goat. I love that guy. He's one of my favorite characters. And like, yeah, the claim of him not deserving his bounty is a little too harsh because like the man took Fisher Tiger's place and earned a 400 million before he got put in Impel Down. And when you're put in, and when you become a warlord, your bounty's frozen, by the way. So he was probably worth more than that, but because he was a warlord for a while, his bounty just stopped going up. It's the same reason why Doflamingo only has a 300 million bounty. And there's also an SBS about Crocodile where it says his bounty, the reason it was only 80 million was because Baroque Works was hidden. and he became a warlord pretty early on. And Oda put in an early on SBS, that if Baroque Works was known about, then Crocodile's bounty would have been at least double, so it would have been around 160 million when Luffy beat him. And then you take like all the crimes he was committing while he was a warlord, you add that together, then you add the 2-year time skip. That's why Crocodile's at 1 billion now. So it kind of, saying Jinbei doesn't deserve 1 billion is it's controversial. So yeah, let me just go to another question. Let's see. Jason says I think saying that Diablo Jambe damages S Shark when we have not actually seen him get damaged after the impact is just speculation. That's why I think it's not accurate to use. Yeah, that's a good point. And by that same token, we can also say that Zoro being exponentially stronger than King is also just speculation, because you could just simply say, okay, he just used Flame Rend to cut through King's strongest attack, and then King just took Zoro's strongest attack to the chest with literally no defense. So, like, I was including both of those feats in there because those are both kind of speculatory feats. But if you throw away both, then I still put Sanji above, just because reflecting a 5 Elder attack is pretty freaking impressive. But that's just in feats. In narrative, Zoro's above in strength. But like, that was earlier in the video. Like, you guys could go back and watch that whole segment. Let's see if there's any other questions. T-Master says, speaking of Jinbei, I've been arguing with my friends about this. Who's stronger? Whole Cake Island Sanji versus Jinbei. Who's stronger? So, which Jinbei do you mean? Do you mean like... So, I guess just Whole Cake Island Jinbei versus Whole Cake Island Sanji, huh? So, that one off the top of my head, that one's going to probably need a whole other video on its own. But if I'm just thinking about it, Sanji was objectively below 3rd Division commanders at that point. He had just recently gotten packed up by Doflamingo. Like, he couldn't break out of Doflamingo's strings. And Doflamingo is shown, like, he's narratively put into the story as, like, the level right at 3rd Division commander. Because right after that, Luffy only fights 3rd Division commanders and up as his, like, main opponents. And Sanji got destroyed by that guy. Then in Whole Cake Island, he gets a little stronger. So it's like he would get a hockey bloom from losing to Dofi. Then he goes on to fight a few Big Mom pirates, right? Like, he fights that genie guy, and he fights Oven. So let's say he gets hockey blooms from those. So he's a little stronger. And Jinbei, what we saw was he was he was Ace level when Ace was... before Ace joined the Whitebeard Pirates. And then Jinbei goes on to whoop Moria. And who else does he beat? Let me think. Does Jinbei have any impressive post-time skip feats? Because, oh yeah, the stuff he does against Big Mom is impressive, but he was also amped by water. Overall, Jinbei has better feats. Jinbei has better feats than that Sanji. Yeah, that one is going to be really close. But off the top of my head, I would say based off of feats, Jinbei, and based off of narrative, I would give it to Jinbei as well. Especially since in Fishman Island, Jinbei was shown like scrapping with Gear 2 Luffy a little bit. So I would give that to Jinbei. Okay, so who else is there? So Crimson Kell says, does Frankie deserve 4 or 5 commander spot of the Straw Hat title? I think he is. So that's a good question. I think like it gets a little tricky once you go beyond 3rd Division commander. Like once you go to 4th, 5th, 6th, etc., it starts getting tricky because not every crew has those. So like Whitebeard had like 14 commanders. But Big Mom only has 3, and then she originally had 4, but the moment he took an L, she just said, all right, you're just a normal soldier. So not everyone has 4th, 5th, 6th, but like if you want to compare to Whitebeard's 4th, 5th, and 6th, that's also a little tough because Oda wrote in SBS that Whitebeard's crew is pretty unorthodox. It's like being higher ranked in the commanders doesn't give you authority over the lower ranking commanders. And it's also implied that they're not even fully ranked by power. Marco is probably the strongest pirate in that crew other than Whitebeard. But for example, we had Odin take the second division commander spot, and Marco took the first. Even now, Marco's weaker than than what Odin used to be. So it's like they're not all ranked by strength. That being said, though, Vista's a fifth division commander, and he would pack Frankie up. I personally am just going to go ahead and say yeah, because Frankie's pretty much just like, he's like an in-between. Like, so if you've seen in the recent chapters, Vegapunk made an upgraded version of the Pacifista that's a level below Seraphim, but it's stronger than the Pacifista that were in Marineford. Frankie's like above those. So Frankie is pretty much like, in the world of One Piece, he's like the second, he's probably like the third most impressive. Hold on. He's like the fourth most impressive like science achievement. Frankie himself, because Frankie's a cyborg, and something people don't know is like Frankie, when he was a kid, he used to make battleships called Battle Frankies, and each one was numbered, like Battle Frankie 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Frankie's body itself is like the most up-to-date Battle Frankie. And when Frankie was a kid, his Battle Frankies could kill Sea Kings. They were designed to be able to like kill like Sea Kings that were nearby Water 7. And now Frankie, post time skip, he created the Frankie Shogun, which I think is like the most up-to-date Battle Frankie. It's the strongest one. So yeah, Frankie's a monster, and compared to like normal pirates, he could solo a lot of crews. His durability's cracked. His attack potency is like pretty solid. And he doesn't really need Haki because he's technology based, so he can just keep getting stronger by thinking of new inventions. So, long story short, I'm gonna go ahead and say, yeah, he's worthy of being a commander, especially since he was able to beat one of the Toby Roppo. Because the Toby Roppo were kind of like, by extension, Kaido's 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th commanders anyway, technically. They kind of fill that point, that spot. Let me see here. So another question says, or from Mochi says, what's your most controversial theory? So the thing with me is I don't like doing theories because I'm afraid I'm gonna guess the ending of the series properly. So I just stay away from theories. And I have some that I'm afraid might literally be the correct ending to One Piece. So I'm like, those ones that I'm afraid of, I'm not going to share. But like, my most controversial theory that like I'm not afraid of sharing would be, yeah, I usually stay away from theories just because I love being surprised by One Piece. But let me think of one. Okay, so a controversial theory that I have is that the Straw Hats and the Joy Boys are connected. So we saw like Roger had a straw hat, then he gave it to Shanks, now it went to Luffy, and then we also saw there was a giant straw hat that like Emu's just like camping out nearby and just looks at it sometimes creepily. And it's kind of assumed by the community that that straw hat belonged to Joy Boy, and that Joy Boy might have been a giant because the hat was so big. I think that there's some sort of connection between the Joy Boys and having a straw hat. So it's like, because Joy Boy, he was looking for someone to fulfill his promise to Fishman Island. For more detail on the Joy Boy prophecy, watch my video Gear 5 is Perfect, because it's so deep. The lore for Joy Boy is so deep. Most people don't know this, but Joy Boy's first, like, the concept of Joy Boy is talked about in Marineford. When Whitebeard's dying, he straight up says, look, Teach, you're not the guy Roger was looking for. Roger was looking for somebody. It ain't you, bro. And then when we see Roger find the One Piece, a little bit of that flashback, he straight up says, Joy Boy, I was too early. I wish I was here in your time. So it's like the guy he's looking for is either the previous Joy Boy or the next one. And that was first mentioned in Marineford. No one talks about that, bruh. Nobody talks about that. Watch Gear 5 is Perfect. It's literally an hour long of me just like with a fine-tooth comb going through all of the Joy Boy lore. But yeah, like when I made that video, I came to the theory that I think that all of the Straw Hats are connected. Like everyone who had a Straw Hat, I think was a potential Joy Boy candidate, because Joy Boy was just saying like, the Joy Boy prophecy explained real simple. You guys are getting a lot in this video, guys. I'll be honest. There's a lot of different things. But the Joy Boy prophecy just explained real simply. It was Joy Boy saying that he failed to keep a promise to Fishman Island, and that someone in the future is going to be born around the same time as Shirahoshi, the next Poseidon, and they're going to help the next Poseidon to fulfill the promise that Joy Boy failed to fulfill his first, like when he was alive. So in simple terms, to fulfill the Joy Boy prophecy, you just need to be born around Shirahoshi and help Shirahoshi. That's pretty much all you have to do. And that includes pretty much anyone that's like within a 20-year age gap of Shirahoshi. So I mean, even someone like Shanks, when he had the straw hat, he could have been a potential candidate. Someone like Roger, he said he was born too early, which is why he gave the hat off to Shanks. And then Luffy was born right on time. So I think that all those straw hat candidates are connected to Joy Boy. That's the answer for today. Do you think Sanji and Frankie will have a proper bounty poster after Egghead? Wait, does Frankie not have a proper one? I need to look at Frankie's wanted poster. But Sanji, I think that's just going to be... Wait, doesn't Sanji have a... His now has like heart eyes in it. Yeah, I think that's just a hilarious running joke. How all of Sanji's posters or pictures of him are just like horribly done. Oh man, can you guys see this notification from my OBS? Whatever. It's okay. But yeah, I think that's just a really funny thing how they do that. So I think Sanji's final wanted poster is probably going to be a joke too. That's what I think, but I don't know. Or his second to last one will be a joke. But yeah, guys, that was everything I wanted to talk about today. Thank you very much for watching the stream. And new upload schedule. I'm going to just let you guys know it. Like I took a hiatus for like 12 days. And I don't even know if you could really consider it a hiatus. Like the whole time I was on my community tab and like thinking of new ideas. And I did a collab with the One. That guy's super funny, by the way. You guys should check him out. Sub to his channel. But yeah, the real reason I was doing all of that was because since the time I started my YouTube till now, my goal was to be able to post 4 full videos a week. That was my goal from the moment I started YouTube till now. And I was just constantly failing trying to do it because these videos like I would make would take so long, and I would spend like 100 hours to get one video out, and then the week's done. And so stuff like that happened a lot. And but over this winter break, I finally figured out a system where I can get 4 videos out a week and 10 shorts. So the way it'll work, we have 2 streams like this a week and then 2 full videos a week. That are like my One Piece is Obvious series and my One Piece is Perfect series. We're just going to keep scaling those out. I have more Baki videos too. So yeah, I mean, this year is going to be really fun. We're going to have, like by the end of this year, guys, we're going to have hundreds of more videos posted. I was doing the math. Like right now we're at 300 videos. And if I post like what I have built out for you guys, by the end of the year, we'll be at like 1,000 videos. So there's a lot to look forward to. But yeah, you guys are going to be getting streams like this every week, and you'll be getting full videos every week too, and shorts every week now, because I figured out how to do it finally. It just took like I've been building YouTube 2 years. It took me 2 years to figure out how to do this. I've been trying to do it since the start, failing over and over, and finally figured it out. So yeah, that you guys got a lot of stuff to look forward to. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you guys